make a difference? I'd like to answer that question by telling you a short story about a man who believes he could make a difference by saving the lives of a few starfish. So what happens is that when the tide comes in, hundreds of starfish are washed ashore, and they lie there on the beach, helpless and unable to move. And one day, a young boy notices an old man crouching to pick up one of these starfishes and throwing it back into the sea. And then he walks a bit further, picks up another starfish, and throws it into the sea. So naturally, the young boy goes up to the old man and asks him, "Why are you throwing starfish into the sea?" To which the old man seeks the obvious and says, "To save their lives." And the boy looks around at the hundreds and thousands of starfishes littered across the beach and asks again, "How could you alone possibly make a difference?" And to answer the young boy's question, the old man crouches once more, picks up another starfish, and throws it as far as he possibly can into the sea and says, "I made a difference to that one." It's easy to become overwhelmed by the immense scale of an issue until we believe that we're helpless to act against it. We ask ourselves, how can I make a difference, to justify our inability to act? But it's not the right cause of action. The issue is worsened when we all have the same mindset, when we all ask ourselves, how can I make a difference? Because that means that nothing will ever happen. The only way to bring about change is to believe that we have the power to make a difference, and then act on what we say. Merely just complaining about an issue won't solve anything. Last year in my economics class, we had a look into the lives of sweatshop workers in Cambodia, which we did while studying poverty. And of course, their lives starkly contrasted to our own. Those at the bottom of the wealth hierarchy lived in a house the size of my room. They worked 24 hours a day, every day, which is far more than any of us would ever have to work in our lives. But because the work they did was unskilled and repetitive, that justified their measly pay of $1 a day. And watching the harsh lives these people led numbed us. But all we did in assistance was sit there silently, watching their suffering. We offered them nothing but pity. We never took action against it because we believed that we didn't have the power to make a difference, that the impact of one person's actions alone was insignificant. Our belief that we couldn't make a difference resulted in not making a difference. This mindset not only hinders us from helping the bottom 1%, it affects us when we encounter any prevailing issue that can't be solved instantly. And climate change is another example of this. The media is saturated with reports of rising sea levels, record-breaking high temperatures, and increased frequency of catastrophic weather events. But this isn't enough to motivate us to take action against climate change. It's portrayed as an immense issue, which it is, but the immensity of it is what makes us feel helpless to act against it. What we should be told instead is that it isn't too late to turn back time and make things right. That even simple things like cutting down on paper waste, stop using plastic bottles or paper bags, that kind of thing, then that's progress, that our actions are significant and aren't in vain. The reason I'm standing up here right now, giving this speech, is in the hopes that I'll have an impact. I've been asked numerous times, how can I make a difference? I've seen people ask me, like, what can I do to make a difference? And it hurts me to see people do that kind of thing. Sometimes we're filled with momentary positivity and the belief that we have the power to change the world, but then we lose sight of that, and everything continues as normal. You see it happen when people watch atrocities that occur in the news, the bombing of civilians being dismissed as collateral damage, political strikes that cost children their lives, war, suffering, and famine, and we watch all this with tears in our eyes, but then we just switch off the TV or put down our newspaper and continue with our lives. We all complain about certain issues that are plaguing the world, but that's the most we ever seem to do. And I'm no exception to this. We come up with excuses for a lack of action, but deep down we know what we're doing is wrong, and the only way to ease our conscience is to take action, to speak out against an issue that means something to you. Because if we leave things too late, then the issue will just worsen and worsen until we just end up regretting not taking action earlier on. I'm giving this speech in the hopes I'll have an impact, and I might not, but I'm trying. And even just affecting one person, compelling them to take action, would have meant I've made a difference. It's kind of like the butterfly effect, when a single flap of a butterfly's wings shapes time and reality to create a catastrophic storm. You never realize how big of an impact a small change can make. It can only be noticed when looking back on time. 3 years ago, I went on a school volunteer trip to Nepal to aid local communities which were devastated by the 2015 earthquake. And one area that we focused our efforts on particularly was the small and isolated village of Nuakot. And here we worked to redevelop the local school, to improve education so that children can build a better future for themselves and free themselves from the poverty trap. I was privileged to be able to talk to some of these students, and I spoke to girls my own age who told me about the ambitious futures they had set out for themselves. Meeting these people helped change my perception of them. I had seen images of earthquake victims and heard their stories on the news, but I couldn't really connect to them. Meeting these girls, however, changed that perception of them. I realized that they were no different from me, that they had dreams and aspirations. So knowing that I was able to have a positive impact on their lives filled me with a sense of fulfillment. In this village, we were able to provide education to a handful of students. And although we didn't end world hunger or solve poverty, we still planted a seed of change in that village. And who knows what that could grow into. What I'd like you to take away from my speech is the understanding that we do have the power to make a difference. That even the smallest of actions, which may be disregarded as insignificant or as futile, can have a positive impact on the world. And if we just choose to stand on the sidelines and helplessly stare at the chaos that exists in front of us, then we have to bear the consequences of choosing not to act. And those consequences will eventually confront us. Thank you for listening to my speech.